I just want to explain my FI journey. FI stands for financial independence, by the way. Um, Basically, in December of 24, my wife and we had our 10-year anniversary, okay? And it was a great day, but it got me thinking, um, what have I been doing these last 10 years? Because 10 years flew by, okay? They flew by. And when I had extra money, an extra $1,000, an extra $2,000, what did I do with that money? And a lot of times, um, I found that I blew it on, say, a new guitar or, a new camera or something. And a lot of those things that I spent my money on are sitting on my shelf collecting dust, right? Some of them I'm not even using. And so I began to think about, how can I do better in the next 10 years? And recently, the last few years, I've been learning about index funds and the S&P 500 and how to invest. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, Sanjay, um, in who lives in Georgia, and I was telling him, my dilemma, the situation. And he said, "Have you ever heard of FI?" And I said, "No, what's FI?" And so he began to well, he didn't really even explain it to me. He just said, "Here's a book. The book is called Choose FI, and and check it out. It might be something that you're kind of right in line to be reading right now." So when I got back home to Florida, I read it and I loved it, and I was like, "Yes, this is exactly what I need." So FI is encapsulates a lot of different things, but some of the core tenets of FI, financial independence, um, is uh, lowering your expenses where possible. Okay, so not keeping up with the Joneses, um, not maybe getting the newest car that comes out or the newest iPhone. So that's one thing, lowering your expenses. Another thing that it includes would be, if possible, increasing your income, right? That's something that we would all like to do, is make more money, okay? And another thing that it does, that it includes, is the what's called the 4% rule, which on this channel, I probably lean more to the 5% rule. Um, but the 4% rule basically says that whatever amount of money you want to make in your retirement. So, say you're thinking, okay, when I retire, I need to make, just say, $100,000 per year. That means your portfolio, okay, so that could be real estate that you own, or that could be index funds that you've invested in the stock market, other companies that you've bought, whatever it is, that portfolio needs to provide $100,000 per year for me to live. Okay. So what you would do with the 4% rule is you would multiply that number, 100,000, times 25, and that would give you 2.5 million. So that would be your FI number, 2.5 million. You would need to make 2.5 million drawing, and it's based on a 4% draw. Okay, so you have 2.5 million in investments, and you're drawing out 4% of that, which would be $100,000 per year. And so that would allow you to live on $100,000. But you might say, well, I don't need to live on 100,000. I only need $50,000 per year. Well, in that case, your FI number would only be 1.25 million. Okay, that's still a big number, but that's much more digestible than 2.5 million. Well, you might say, well, I don't need 50,000. Maybe your house is paid off, and so you say, I only need $30,000 per year to live. Or you're like Mr. Money Mustache, one of the early pioneers of the FI movement, and you say, well, I'm just going to maybe not have a car or cut back, and I only need to live on 30,000. Well, in that case, your FI number would be only about $750,000, which is, again, much more digestible than even $1 million. That means at that point, your expenses would be covered for, say, with a high probability over, 30 years in the future. Okay, so the next 30 years, you're basically covered. Your expenses are going to be covered. And so those are some of the key tenets. There's a lot of other things related with FI, but those are some of the key tenets related to FI. And so for us, one good thing that we had been doing over the last 10 years, my wife and I, thanks mostly to her because she really pushed this, was to pay down our house. And so we were blessed enough to actually pay off our house in 2025, okay, just this year. And what that did was that took our expenses down. Our mortgage wasn't that much, right? It was, I think, $700 and $750 because we bought in like 2015 and we bought for like $127,000. And we put down, I think, 27,000. So we only owed about 99K. And so over the last 10 years, we've been able to pay that off. But now that 750 wasn't there anymore. And so our expenses right now are $2,000 per month. Now that also has to do with, because we have a business, the business covers, we have an air conditioning business, the business covers a lot of our expenses, our cell phone or different things. But our expenses are only $2,000. Now, even though we paid off our mortgage, we still have to pay for taxes and insurance, which is about $400 per month. So you add that to the $2,000, and we're sitting at about $2,400 per month, which is about $28,800 per year, which is great because guess what? If we can make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 or something in our business, and we can take that difference. That's another thing with the FI journey. It's about taking the difference between your expenses and what you earn and investing that into something like index funds, like the S&P 500, okay? So this is what got me started on this FI journey. I've taken, in all my years, I took one Dave Ramsey course back, FPU, Financial Peace University, when I lived out in California, and I was $50,000 in debt at that time, and so that helped me get on track. And then my wife and I actually took it a couple years ago as well to help us get on a better track as well. And so we took that, and then we've now been introduced to the FI movement, which got us thinking on how we can, again, use our extra money to invest that money. So I am on this journey to get my expenses covered by my dividends. So for me right now, that number with a business is about $2,400. So my question is, how can I cover my $2,400 expenses? What is it going to take? Basically, say $29,000 per year. Well, that's going to take, at 4% draw, about a little over $700,000. Well, that's a big number, right? Well, what if I do 5% draw, which is also a pretty conservative amount? If I draw 5%, then I still need to make about $580,000, okay? That's still a lot of money. But what if I break it down to a monthly amount or a weekly amount? Well, in my situation, being $29,000 per year that I need, it would take to cover a whole year, it would take 580,000 based on a 5% draw. So what if I divide that by 12? If I divide 580,000 by 12, it's about $48,000. So now I have an amount that to where my portfolio can cover 1 month of my life. So for 1 month, I wouldn't have to be paid by my AC company. For 1 month, my portfolio would cover if I can get $48,000 and do a 5% draw on that. You get that? So if I can save $48,000 and draw 5% of that money, I can cover 1 month, which would be $2,400 of expenses. Well, 48,000, that's a lot better than 580,000, right? That's a little more. Well, what would it take to cover 1 week? Divide that by 4. 48 divided by 4, it's about $12,000. So if I can come up with $12,000, then I can cover 1 week. My portfolio can cover 1 week of my expenses, not just this year, but over the next, say, 20 or 30 years at least, based on a 5% draw. How much would it cost to, you could take this even further. How much would it cost to cover 1 day? So I can say, hey, my portfolio, I have a portfolio that covers 1 day every year for the next 30 years. Well, for me, at $29,000 expenses per year, it would take something around 15 something. I forgot. I figured it out, but about $1,500. So if I can save and invest $1,500 in the S&P 500 or index funds, $1,590, that will cover 1 day of my expenses. So right now, my goal and what I'm trying to do is to get to, for me, it's a week. I want to get to $12,000. If I can get to $12,000, then that $12,000 on a 5% draw will cover 1 week of my expenses. Our AC company won't have to pay me that week, or they still can, and I can, I could use that money, but let's say the AC company doesn't have to pay, so that's less strain on our AC company for 1 week. And for me, my portfolio would cover 1 week, and that's just the dividends. So in that sense, I would be living, even for that 1 week, living off the dividends, which is the name of this channel. And so that's what I'm trying to shoot for, that 12 grand. And when I get to 12, then guess what? I'm going to go for $24,000, because what do workers want from a company? You want 2 weeks paid vacation, right? Well, if I save up not 12,000, but 12,000 times 2, $24,000, and have that invested in, say, something like the S&P 500, and if I draw out 5% of that, I can, for the next 20 to 30 years potentially, and maybe more, I will have a paid vacation 2 weeks every year that our AC company will not have to pay me. So less strain on the AC company to make that money, and I'll have a 2-week paid for vacation by my portfolio. So this is a way that as we work our way up to get to that point where we have $580,000, we have these mini successes along the way. And in the meantime, we're just building our nest egg, but we're also slowly coming to the point where 1 month is covered, where we are financially independent for 1 month, then we're financially independent for 2 months, and so on and so forth. So that is the journey that I am on, and then I'm excited to encourage you on as well in your own journey. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. It helps us reach a larger audience, and we'll see you in the next video.